Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodhanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodhanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodhanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodhanandana Braja Janaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Astottara Sata Sri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki ISKCON's founder Charya Srila Prabhupada Ki Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Sri Sri Radha Radhanath Sriman Mahaprabhu Ki Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 25, entitled The Descriptions of the Characteristics of King Puranjan, Text 31. Tvadananam shubhrusutaralochanam Tvadananam shubhrusutaralochanam Vyalambinilalaka samvritam Vyalambinilalaka samvritam Uniyame darshaya valguvachakam Uniyame darshaya valguvachakam Yadvriddhayana bhimukam shruti smite Yadvriddhayana bhimukam shruti smite Tvadananam shubhrushutaralochanam Vyalambinilalaka samvritam Unniyame darshaya valguvachakam Yadvridayana bhimukam shuchi smite Tvadananam shubhrushutaralochanam Vyalambini lalaka vrinda sambritam. Unniyame darshaya valguvachakam. Yadvridayanabhimukam shuchismite. Vyalambini lalaka vrinda samvritam. Unniyame darshaya valguvachakam. Yadvridayanabhimukam shuchismite. Tvadananam shubhrusutaralochanam. Vyalambini lalaka vrinda samvritam. Unniyame darshaya valguvachakam. Yadvridayanabhimukam shuchismite. Word for word. Tvat yo ananam, face, subhru, having nice eyebrows, sutara, with nice pupils, lochanam, eyes, vyalambi, scattered, nila, bluish, alaka vrinda, by locks of hair, sangbritam, surrounded, unniya, having raised, may, unto me, darshaya, show, falguvachakam, having words very sweet to hear, yat, which face, vridaya, by shyness, na, not, abhimukam, face to face, shuchi smite, O woman with lovely smiles. Translation. My dear girl, your face is so beautiful with your nice eyebrows and eyes, and with your bluish hair scattered about. In addition, very sweet sounds are coming from your mouth. Nonetheless, you are so covered with shyness that you do not see me face to face. I therefore request you, my dear girl, to smile and kindly raise your head to see me. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Such a speech is typical of a living entity attracted by the opposite sex. This is called bewilderment, occasioned by becoming conditioned by material nature. When thus attracted by the beauty of the material energy, one becomes very eager to enjoy. This is elaborately described in this instance of Puranjans becoming attracted by the beautiful women. In conditional life, the living entity is attracted by a face, eyebrows or eyes, a voice or anything. In short, everything becomes attractive. When a man or woman is attracted by the opposite sex, it does not matter whether the opposite sex is beautiful or not. The lover sees everything beautiful in the face of the beloved and thus becomes attracted. This attraction causes the living entity to fall down in this material world. This is described in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 27. Icha dvesha samuttena dvandva mohena bharata sarva bhutani sammoham sarge yanti parantapa. O Shrine of Bharat, Arjun, O conqueror of the foe, all living entities are born into delusion, overcome by the dualities of desire and hate. This condition of life is called avidya. Opposed to this avidya is real opposed to this avidya is real knowledge. Sri Isopanishad distinguishes between vidya and avidya, knowledge and ignorance. By avidya, ignorance, one becomes conditioned, and by vidya, knowledge, one becomes liberated. Puranjan admits herein that he is attracted by avidya. Now he wishes to see the complete feature of avidya, and so requests the girl to raise her head so that he can see her face to face. He thus wishes to see the various features that make avidya attractive. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Shtapitam Jaina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaeva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adigaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Tvadananam Shubhrushatara Lochanam Vyalambi Nilalaka Vrinda Sambritam Unniya me darshaya valgu vachakam yadvridaya nabhimukam shuchi smite. My dear girl, your face is so beautiful with your nice eyebrows and eyes, and with your bluish hair scattered about. In addition, sweet sounds are coming from your mouth. Nonetheless, you are so covered with your shyness that you do not see me face to face. I therefore request you, my dear girl, to smile and kindly raise your head to see me. The section of Srimad Bhagavatam where Narada Muni is relating this allegorical story to Prachina Barisat very elaborately describes the mentality of the living entity who is conditioned, who is afflicted by lusty desires. It's quite a contrast when one thinks about it. The very sons of Prachina Barishat, the Prachetas, are pursuing a path of self-realization, dismissing the allurements of the material world, the allurements, the attacks of Maya. They have entered into a lake and they are very earnestly meditating on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. And on the other hand, their own father, Prachina Barishat, is aspiring or is endeavoring to achieve all sorts of material sense gratification. It's quite a difference, father and sons. And therefore Narada Muni, feeling mercy on King Prachina Barisat, instructs him using this allegorical story about Puranjan. And as we read about Puranjan's representation, he is the living entity, like you and I. Whether we are called Puranjan or Puranjani, whether we male or female, it all has relevance and it all is very applicable. The nature that Puranjan is presenting, his attachments, his aversions, how he is attracted by the material nature. And here we find that this living entity, Puranjan, by the dictates of the senses, he becomes attracted, or the mind becomes very attracted. And Prabhupada says in the purport, in conditional life, the living entity is attracted by a face, eyebrows or eyes, a voice or anything. In short, Prabhupada says, everything becomes attractive. What may be unattractive to me is attractive to someone else. So everything by the dictates of the mind, or rather by the attraction of the mind dictated to by the senses, everything becomes attractive. Even the most repulsive thing to one person can become very attractive to another person. This is what is the nature and the power of Maya. Even if just one of the senses, we have so many senses, even if just one of them is roaming, Indriyanam hi charatam, second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, even if one of the senses becomes attracted or becomes fixated on enjoying something, then one's entire intelligence can be carried away. Pragya harati. One's sense of discrimination, one's intelligence that can help one restrain themselves from falling down, from pursuing this unnecessary path of sense gratification, even that becomes carried away. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 67, as a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even just one of the roaming senses on which the mind is focused can carry away a man's intelligence. So this is Maya's purpose. Krishna, of course, he designed Maya, so it's his energy. It's very powerful, very difficult to overcome, duratyaya. And it's the purpose of the Maya to attract the living entity's mind. To attract the mind through the senses, to look at this thing, to smell that thing, to hear this situation, to touch and feel another thing. Simply to attract the mind from its real purpose, from the living entity's real and ultimate purpose, which is to focus on the lotus feet of Krishna. So this is the danger of how volatile the attraction of the senses are. It can lead us anywhere and everywhere, just one. Sometimes we think, let me try and just engage one or two senses today. Let me focus on that. But no, Krishna consciousness means to be fully conscious of Krishna with everything. Therefore, Ambarish Maharaj's example is very, very significant. Sarvaimana Krishna Padara Vindayo. It's described in the Bhagavatam. That Ambarish Maharaj, he utilized all his senses. Everything that he could think with, see with, feel, whatever, he utilized it in the service of Krishna. And that's why he's celebrated as a Krishna conscious person. So we also need to design our lives, our activities, in such a way that all the senses are always engaged in Krishna service. Krishna service not only just physically, but even in a contemplative way, even thinking about Krishna. Therefore we find how nicely Srila Prabhupada designed his temples, designed his program of sadhana, that there's so much of thought put into it, so carefully designed, that the devotee who's serious, who just exists in the temple, lives in the temple, or if their home is made into a temple, just nicely lives in their home, automatically all their senses are engaged in Krishna's service. And thereby greatly reducing the tendency for any one of the senses, and thus following the senses, to reduce the tendency of the mind to become carried away by Maya. This is Maya's role, to attract the mind. This is Maya's approach. It'll just start with one sense, and then eventually all the senses, and then the mind, and the intelligence and discrimination, all will capitulate and fall apart, and thus the living entity falls down. And as we're reading in this section of Puranjan being very deeply attracted by this girl, we find that sex life, this is where the attractive potency, the bewildering potency, the bewildering strength of Maya is at its topmost, by utilizing the attractive features of the opposite gender. As His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj was pointing out yesterday in his class, although the verses that are mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam relating to sense gratification, Maya, attraction, fall down, is generally given from the perspective of the male personality. We read here, he this, he that, and she is Maya and this. But internally it can be very easily adjusted to apply to a female, because it's very inefficient in the Bhagavatam or any scripture to write he or she will be attracted by she or he. It's not an efficient way. So it's not that the Bhagavatam is labeling women to be Maya and men to be the conditioned living entity who is being afflicted. It's also that for the woman, man is Maya and the woman is affected. So just as Puranjan is being so bewildered by the amazing attractive features of this young girl, it's also Puranjani. One could consider themselves that the woman is being afflicted by the attraction of the male's very attractive features, whatever attractive features are there. So this sex life is Maya Devi's most powerful tool to attract the living entity and to make them fall down. And the world today revolves on this principle. It builds on this principle of sex attraction. We find $1 million beauty industries of today, how to make the different attractive features of the female's body and the male's body more and more attractive. How to get thinner waists, fuller lips, fairer skin, fuller hair, different colors of hair. So much of money goes into it, all dictated to by the material energy. Like here, he's talking about her nice eyebrows and eyes, right? You see every now and then advertisements of how to shape eyebrows. I'm not sure if any Prabhus here went for eyebrow shaping. Anybody? Or how to color your hair, how to change the color of your eyes, because, for this few years, brown eyes are very beautiful, but in another few years it's going to be a lighter color eye or a darker color eye, right? Or this type of hairstyle. How was it that 60 years ago a certain hairstyle was so in vogue and so attractive, but now when you look at it, that doesn't look good. So Maya has a way of changing, because Maya is always changing according to the nature, the situation, the mentality of people. And it's constantly positioning itself, that material energy is constantly adjusting, mutating, positioning itself to find ways to attract the senses of the opposite gender. This is its very attentive, vigilant nature, that which Maya is. When Maya becomes activated in this way, when the material energy is activated in this way, then it focuses, it hones on the weaknesses of the conditioned living entity. And as Prabhupada said, then that living entity, that person can be attracted virtually by anything, by absolutely anything. As Lord Chaitanya, he says, even the form of a wooden doll can make me fall down. Even the tinkling of bells, the ankle bells. Now one has to logically just consider, how on earth could tinkling bells cause a person to become bewildered? If you just separate it from the bigger picture, just look at the bell. How is this possible? Or how is a girl's or a man's eyebrows or biceps or slender waist or whatever? If you just separate it from the bigger picture of what that is part of, one thinks that this is illogical, isn't it? It's completely illogical. If you simply take someone's eyebrows and look at it alone, what's the big deal? It just doesn't make sense. Or just hear ankle bells, just arbitrarily, without knowing where it's coming from. How can that force one to become bewildered? But that's what happens, because it's connected to the greater form that will cause one to become attracted, become very much agitated to enjoy what it's part of, the female form or the male form. Even if in another verse it speaks about the curl of her hair, the curls of her hair. If one simply has to take up a close-up of the curls of the hair, how is that possible to be attracted? But because the living entity is desiring this highest form of sense enjoyment in the material world, namely sex life, all these things become attractive. All these things become attractive. So as Prabhupada says, even though when you put all these things together, even if the person is beautiful or not, simply by the desire to enjoy, that which is not beautiful becomes beautiful. They say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And that holds true for spiritual life as well. Sometimes we notice, this is an aside, if we look at Krishna, the deity, let's say, from a materialistic perspective, right? Analyzing the deity from the way the deity is painted, or the shape of the deity's face, some deities may not seem that attractive. I don't know if you felt that. Some deities, like their paint is worn off and they look so unkempt, and yet some deities are just so exquisite and perfectly dressed and painted. But when you speak to the pujaris or the persons worshipping the deities, even a seemingly untidy deity, if there's such a thing, is so attractive to the person who's worshipping, isn't it? So attractive that even the most externally stunningly deity, the devotee is not so interested in going to worship. They just want to worship their own deity. Even a mother, for that matter. How many of you think babies are the most beautiful thing, the most beautiful entities? Not always, right? Some babies, just the form could look a little, a little different. Especially when they're covered with mucus and vomit and all sorts of things. But to the mother, what does the mother think? That this form is still the most beautiful sight that I have. Because of attachment. Yes, it's probably the purest form of attachment, but still it's material. It's still based on bodily attraction. So like that, anything can become beautiful. And actually, anything can become very ugly and unattractive. Prabhupada quotes from the Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter. Icha dvesha samuttena dvanva mohena bharata sarva bhutani sammoham sargayanti parantapa. That when the living entity becomes bewildered by all these dualities, attracted by the senses and followed by the mind, all these dualities, then desire and hate arise. Two sides of the same coin, attraction and aversion. Even though one object may seem so beautiful to someone else, because you have enmity with that someone else, that object that he is attracted to becomes very distasteful to you. Isn't it? We may have had that experience from time to time. What is beautiful to one person becomes a source of aversion to another person. So it's not that we must just shun or be cautious to be not attracted by the allurements of material life. Bhagavad Gita teaches us we must also be cautious not to become averse to all the elements of the material world. Because both of attachment and aversion Krishna speaks about in Bhagavad Gita are the two sides of the same coin, which binds us to the material world. So one must not become falsely distasteful towards any sense object. Rather, one must see it all in relation to Krishna. One must see it all in relation to Krishna and utilize all the objects as far as is possible in the service of Krishna. So yeah, when even just, as we were saying, even just one sense, Bhagavad Gita is saying, one of the senses becomes conquered by Maya or becomes attracted by Maya, then Maya, she fixes the mind on the so-called impending enjoyment, and then that living entity's passion becomes aroused more and more. It becomes so aroused that the living entity becomes so bewildered that they call that experience of passion, they term it love in the material world. But it's all born from a foundation of attraction of the senses. And the sense is that these senses are attracted to an object that is temporary. Temporary in its structure, temporary in its existence, time of existence, because all things come into being, they stay around for some time, they dwindle, they wither away, and they die. So how can one truly be in love with something in the material world? Because it's going to go away eventually. It's going to go away eventually. And we call this love. And this material energy is so powerful, so crafty, that it reinforces that same illusion which we call love with so many millions and millions of scriptures, well, not scriptures, but novels and books and dramas and experts on love and relationships, simply to give us a deeper sense of importance to this lust or this fleeting attraction within this material world. So much of emphasis is placed on the attraction of the senses to its sense objects, and then what happens to the mind, how the mind becomes attached. So much of importance, even though the Srimad Bhagavatam and Prahlad Maharaj, for that matter, he declares all these attachments to be hitucham, certainly very, very insignificant. Yan maitunadi grihamedi shukam hitucham, that the happiness, that the pleasure one gets from all these attractions is so insignificant, tucham. So this is avidya. Avidya or ignorance, our intelligence, the intelligence of the conditioned living entity, becomes polluted, becomes contaminated by ignorance. Ignorance of our true condition, of our true identity. And we find that Puranjan, he is under that influence of ignorance, which is the ultimate cause of bondage. He is so attracted to this ignorance that he wants to see the full feature of the ignorance, which he knows is in the form of this girl's face, as Prabhupada says. He wants to experience the full feature. So he asks the girl to please cast away her shyness and raise her face towards him so he can see her face. So yeah, he's completely bewildered and he doesn't know any better. But beyond that, Puranjan, the nature of Puranjan, we also find a different type of person, which we'll also read about in the Bhagavatam, which we also know about sometimes in ourselves, that we become knowingly bewildered. We are bewildered, but we know that we are bewildered, isn't it? That happens to us sometimes. The conditioned living entity, they know they are being deluded, but they find themselves in too deep already in the illusion, that they're actually getting some taste out of that illusion, even though it's insignificant, hitucham. They are finding some taste, or they've invested too much now to extricate themselves out of it. They need to go through the full experience somehow or the other. And they are sometimes hoping against hope. In cinematography, this is called suspended disbelief. You heard of the statement? Suspended disbelief. Right? It's like you go to a movie, you've already seen the trailer, you know the actors, you've seen the actors in some other movie, you know that their character is not a real character, but you sort of internally, psychologically suspend your clear understanding of that person's identity, and you see them in the movie or you see them in the drama falling in love with somebody, or in a high-speed car chase, jumping over a mountain, or dying even. But mentally you have suspended your clarity, suspended your understanding of reality, because if you didn't suspend it, you wouldn't be able to enjoy the drama. You'd be like the cynic just there, oh, I understand this is not real. How many people go to the movies in that mentality? Hardly anybody, right? Because they are suspending their disbelief, suspending their rationality so that they can enjoy the drama. They can enjoy the movie. Similarly, the living entity sometimes, well, oftentimes, suspends our rationality, our sense of discrimination, so that we can really try our best to enjoy our Maya, enjoy our illusion, enjoy the dreamlike state that we are in. We suspend our belief, our disbelief. So much so that you'll find that things that we may do just don't make sense. For instance, one could consider a young man who falls in love with a married woman. The woman is married to a very strong, powerful, influential man who will destroy him. But this young man becomes hopelessly attached. Even though he knows if one has to logically put down the pros and cons of this relationship, it's terrible, don't do it. But helplessly they are carried forward. Or sometimes you may find a businessman or a person who's not really a businessman, but a person who's not very experienced in business. He gets some idea, right, for some maybe a pyramid scheme or something which is now considered illegal. And despite all good advice, they dive in, invest so much of money, and they find that it's not really yielding any returns, but still they pour more money. Despite so many people warning them, despite him seeing other people losing so much of money and himself losing, still goes further and further until there's nothing left to be lost, and eventually they snap out of it. So they suspend their disbelief. I don't know how many of you have had the experience, I've had the experience of receiving a very earnest plea, a very earnest helpful request from the Crown Prince of Nigeria. Anybody got a request from the Crown Prince of Nigeria, whose father was recently deposed? You heard? He emailed you. He's got $10 billion in a bank account in South Africa, but he can't get it released. He needs someone to go and deposit money online to do away with some technical obstacle so that the money can be released. And it just costs about 3,000 rands to release the money, which he's asking you, very earnestly asking you, to please help him. And if you do that, you will get $10 million from him. You got that, you also got it. Why you didn't help that Prabhu? You helped him. You helped him, huh? You helped him. So many of us got these letters, right? These scams. Because the attraction of enjoyment is so amazing. It's unbelievably amazing that we suspend our disbelief and we fall into it. These scams. I mean, if the Crown Prince of Nigeria asks you for help, you should help. Because look what's going to come to you. We had, many years ago, there was a brahmachari in the temple, and very nice devotee. And he came to me, very seriously, he came to me. And he said, Prabhu, I'm really sorry, I've been here for a couple of years now, but I realize now I have to leave and I've got other services to do. I've got some other projects I want to do. And it just didn't seem like this devotee. So I quizzed him a little further, like, what's going on, Prabhu? And then he was very hesitant to tell me, like, he thought, it seemed like it was very confidential, and he felt I may ruin it or something. I got that sense. So eventually he came out with it, and he showed me this example of this email. You know, these scams where people from somewhere in Africa, West Africa, or wherever, will send you, like I described, a scam letter. And this devotee completely bought it. He was actually asking me, Prabhu, do you think the temple could lend me 1,000 rands so I could invest in, I could do this? And then I sort of laughed, and I said, Prabhu, I also received this very similar letter. And he was like, not accepting it. Just not accepting it at all. Then I showed him the letter I received, and I showed him the wording structure. Just the names have been changed, the amounts. See, Prabhu, it's exactly the same thing. This is a scam. And see on the internet articles that are showing how this is a scam. He just didn't want to believe it. He got so upset with me. He thought I was trying to catch in on the action. That's what he really thought. And he left. He just left. He didn't want to he suspended his disbelief completely. This is what happened. Pashyanapi na pashyati, Deha patya kalatradishu. The second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam speaks about this. That the person helplessly, even though he's seeing the situation, he has experience of the situation from his own personal life or from viewing other people's personal lives of how people become bewildered by all these situations. Pashyanapi na pashyati. Even though he's seeing his experience, he does not see. They cover themselves up because the illusion is a better experience than reality. Is a better experience than reality. And he wants the dream to continue. How many of you had that experience? You have this amazing dream that's just captivating you. And then suddenly you get frustratingly woken up by the alarm clock. Or the brahmachari ashram leader comes, rings the bell, get up. And how do you feel? Oh, if only I could. And you try to go back to sleep to capture the dream again. But you have to wake up. These dreams are temporary. These illusions are temporary. These delusions are temporary. They are arising from all these sense perceptions. But we get so locked into it. We make it a reality in our minds. We make it a reality. We have to be very careful, learning from Puranjan or Puranjani, that all our senses have to be engaged in Krishna consciousness. We have to be conscious of Krishna. Not just my tongue is very conscious of Krishna 2 or 3 times a day, but everything else can be unconscious. No, everything has to be conscious of Krishna. If there is simply one avenue for Maya to enter because of our inattention, she will enter. She will enter in that way. And very soon, we will be taking 3,000 rands online to pay the Crown Prince of Nigeria. That's the least of our worries. That's the least of our worries. So many other greater difficulties we can find ourselves falling into. Let's see, what else does Prabhupada say? Okay, we can stop here. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Thank you, Swarup Damodar Prabhu. Yeah, I like that one about the suspended disbelief. We go through it our whole life, isn't it?
Yeah.
From the time we... I was, you're reading about, I was saying this girl, and then I was thinking of the 8th canto where Krishna takes the form of this Mohini Murti, and a very vivid description of how she's moving in a body, and the demons are just bewildered by all this, And even Lord Shiva also fell prey to that.
Hmm.
And he
Yeah.
started-
Lord Shiva, 8th canto, Mohini Murti, you'll know the story. After the churning of the milk ocean, the nectar was retrieved or was churned out, and what to do now with the nectar. So Mohini Devi, Krishna incarnates in the form of this most attractive female, and she bewilders the demons. And Lord Shiva, he hears the story and he desires to see that form. Even though he's advised, not to, but he desires, and once he sees that form, he becomes so bewildered. Of course, this is not Maya Devi or Durga Devi, the material entity. This is Krishna himself in the form of a female. So one can imagine how alluringly beautiful that form must be. So if Lord Shiva can be attracted, what to speak of ourselves? So we always have to be constantly on guard and constantly protected by the association of devotees, forming a very strong ring of protection, defense system in the form of the association of devotees. And Maya also understands that to be the devotee's best protective mechanism. She also understands that. Therefore, when Maya plans to infiltrate or attack a devotee, one of the first places she targets is the devotee's relationships with other devotees. She targets that. So if you ever find yourself thinking or feeling some ill will to a devotee, or if you're feeling some strain, immediately have that consciousness, no, this is Maya. Because oftentimes, if we do not think in that way, we will find reasons to validate a conflict with a devotee. We'll find some reason. And generally those reasons are based on bodily identification. Now in so many spiritual movements, I was listening yesterday about how one very major religious group on the world, how it has two major factions and how it came out to be. It was based on the succession of the founder who was meant to be the successor. And such huge rifts have been formed, such huge rifts. So even in spiritual societies, even in a society like ours, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, you'll find so many difference of opinions, so many different schools of thought, liberal, conservative, only male Diksha gurus, yes, female Diksha gurus are allowed, and only Indian people are worthy of becoming Brahmins. No, everybody, so many difference of thoughts can be there. And it's fine, because we are all individuals, we all have differences, we all have different understandings. But what causes the difficulty and allows Maya to enter is when we start finding faults in each another personally. We may have reason to disagree on the basis of some approach in Krishna consciousness. Of course, some of the things that I've mentioned, the examples are those are actually not very good examples, because Shastra is clear, like in terms of only Indians becoming Brahmanas. Shastra is clear that whoever is eligible by training and quality and activity, anyone can be a Brahman. It's not that only a Brahman can be a Brahman because they're born. Or as Prabhupada very easily taught to us, spiritual advancement and the ability to impart spiritual knowledge is not based on one's caste, creed, or gender. Anyone can offer this blessing in the form of spiritual instruction, the transference of spiritual knowledge or diksha. But putting those two examples aside, there can be so many reasons for disagreement, even in spiritual societies. But Maya uses those disagreements, those difference of opinions rather, to enter and to cause conflicts amongst devotees. So one must be cautious of that. Once we allow Maya to enter into our difference of opinions, then we start criticizing each other, start finding faults with each other. Even thinking ill of a devotee is a cause of concern. It's a red flag. And it's all based on bodily identification. We find so many, practically all the conflicts in the world today, even within spiritual circles, is based on how I and my group identifies ourselves. We find this. If we just dig deeper beneath the surface, one will see that. And how do you know that on the basis of my difference of opinion with someone else, I'm falling prey to Maya? That if the tendency to think ill of the person on the other side of the issue is constantly there, then we are in Maya. Then we are in Maya. Just because I'm in a male body, I need to support all the males. I'm in a female body, I need to support all the females against whatever males want to do. That happens, very common now, right? I have a certain orientation of gender or sexuality, then I just identify with this or identify against them. But it's all bodily based. And as soon as we are bodily based in our engagement with devotees, then that's an avenue for Maya to enter. And then once Maya enters there, she builds, and eventually our senses become distracted from serving Krishna, our time gets wasted in other pursuits, and we fall down from Krishna consciousness. So one must be very careful in the attempt to protect us from Maya by the association of devotees. That same defense system can be broken down by Maya simply by conflicts amongst the devotees. So one has to be very, very careful in that regard. Anything else, devotees? All right, thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.